Hey everyone, so this is a sort of abbreviated or time-lapsed version of a lesson, an older cloud lesson that's on my Patreon online art school. And this is all about how to paint a specific type of towering cumulus cloud scene. That painting you see up in the corner, that's my own painting. So we're doing basically a study or a version of my own painting so that I can demonstrate how I get these colors and gradations in the cloud and how to simplify a cloud, but also have it look real, right? Okay, so the key is first, I'm going to mix up a black because you have to key in your value scale, or you have to key in your value relationships at the start. Because if you don't put a black down and you just try painting the sky first, there's a good chance you'll paint it too dark or too light, and you'll have to repaint the whole thing. So I'm just mixing up a black, and I'm just going to underpaint everything with this sort of notan design. For those of you that don't know, notan, N-O-T-A-N, is a Japanese design concept. Think about the yin and the yang symbol. That's a notan design, right? Just black and white. All of the form is represented by black, and all of the absence of form is represented by white. All right, so the first thing I do when I'm painting a sky like this, especially this is a kind of a larger painting, so I need to mix big pools of color. So I'm going to start with ultramarine and a touch of Prussian and see what that gives me. Now I'm adjusting by adding a touch of red and a touch of yellow. And you'll see that as I paint and I move my way up, I'm constantly adjusting the pool slightly. And that's how you create beautiful color that is not boring and flat, right? It's got atmosphere. It's also got, the gradation is smooth. It looks realistic. It's not blotchy. By mixing big pools of paint and shifting them, you can really just create a gradation that goes up through the sky that looks beautiful and realistic. All right, I'm going to slow the footage down here so you can see some of the real-time lesson. For this part right here, maybe a little bit more purple, actually. So the mixtures down here, if you look closely at the gradation, the purples along the bottom they have less red and they're kind of more grayish blue. And then right up here is where the red starts coming in more vibrantly. So I add more red and white to this pool. Maybe a touch of yellow for up here. More vibrant. And remember, you want to paint dark to light. And what that means is it's better to paint these clouds too dark and vibrant on the first layer, and then you can oil it out and come back over the top. Tone it down, do whatever you need to do on the second layer. All right, we are going to split this lesson up into two videos. So the first video is going to be at the start of this month, and I will post the final second video in January. So we'll do the complete first layer this month, and I'll post that for you guys to see. And that way you can follow along at home, and then you can wait for yours to dry too while mine is drying. Get some vibrant orange here. It's a little bit too vibrant. So add a little bit of white and red to it so it's not so orangey. Over here, this cloud is a little bit more red. Move to a smaller brush here. So this cloud has a kind of red border around it as well. I should use a round brush for this. Just around the edges here. I love painting these. They're a lot of fun because a lot of it is me making things up, so I get to express myself through the creating it. I'm not just copying a photo when I design these hay bale scenes. I'm trying to create an otherworldly kind of scene that evokes memories for people that grew up or maybe visited the farmland, rural areas of our country here in the US, or even England, or any area where you have farmland. Just that beautiful feeling you get that overcomes you when you see, you know, hay bales in the farm field or cattle and the beautiful rising moon and sunlit clouds. It's just amazing. It's almost a spiritual experience, akin to watching the sunrise on the ocean or something, you know? All right, we're going to clean our palette off, and we're going to move to the blue of the sky. Now, why? Why am I all of a sudden just deciding to stop the cloud halfway through? Well, you want to bounce around, especially when you're keying in and doing the first layer, getting all the color laid in. You want to start with your darks, then you want to move from your dark right to the next color above your dark. That helped me key in the sky. And then from there, I kind of roughly blocked in some of the colors I'm expecting to see in the cloud. And in order for me to get the cloud nailed or painted in correct, I now need to come in with all the blues around the cloud, which will help me figure out how vibrant to make the actual cloud. All right, so one of the features of the blue skies in my hay bale paintings is that the blue is often exaggerated just a little bit. It's a little bit more compressed in value, so it doesn't go from super light to super dark. It generally starts pretty dark down here, so I keep the sky dark and vibrant and blue. So how I do that is, if you look closely, you'll see the blue sky, it actually is purple down here. It's got a lot of red mixed in, and then it goes into like an aqua green just a little bit, and then into blue. So we're going to mix up, we're going to start the gradation down here. So first I'm going to mix a blue, Prussian, ultramarine, and then I'm going to put red in it. And I'm going to test it. A little more Prussian and yellow and red. It's pretty gray. More purple. So pretty dark. And then I get more purple right here. There's a little bit of a pink cloud right there. So that's all way too dark, but fear not. In the pool, I add white and Prussian back in. So I've taken all that gray, and the Prussian is so vibrant that I can shift it. Let's put a little bit of yellow in it because it's kind of an aqua. And I'm going to come right over the top of the blue, or the purple that I just put down, and add a little bit of this blue right into it. And then blend it. And then it gets more vibrant right up here, a little more yellow in it. That's too much yellow. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, it's too yellow. So put more blue and white. A little red maybe. Still too vibrant. So how do we knock down the vibrancy of this? Well, add orange, which is the complement. A little more red. Subtle. I basically have grayed down the turquoise color. This is too dark, so add white. All right, so as I get close to the edge here, I need to make sure I don't mess up the drawing. So I'm going to come in with the smaller round right up to the edge. I can immediately see that this red is probably a little bit too light or not red enough. Scrape off some of the excess paint here. Now that I've got this color mixed up, I might as well put just a hint of it right over here. Along the same gradation line. Now, very quickly, if you'll notice, right about this part of the cloud right there, it gets darker, and I introduce ultramarine into the mixture. Now, ultramarine is more of violet. Putting the paint on really thick because I'm going to blend it back here in a sec. Whoop. So these blues are so subtle that it's very difficult for you guys to probably see it on the palette. You just need to analyze what's going on up here. When you're painting blues, I would say the blues are probably the most important part of these paintings I do. They are the anchor. That blue sky anchors all the warm color. And so having a beautiful gradation and understanding how to do blues is going to help you create good landscapes. All right, now all of this way too thick. So I'm going to grab some palette knife here and just scrape off some of the excess paint. And then I'm going to blend it all. Grab my blending brush. And I'm just going to do some little blending. horizontally first. And then downward. You got to do the downward strokes to get rid of the horizontal glare. See? Beautiful. Now, above the cloud, it gets more vibrant blue. Not that vibrant. So I'm going to add a little purple and yellow to it to tone it down. There we go. That's pretty close. There's a few areas with little clouds that I'm leaving blank for now. Dipping in a little liquid here and there to keep the paint flowing. So normally, if this wasn't a commission, I would be using the odorless mineral spirits to wet and keep the paint flowing, but I'm using liquid instead. If you don't like the smell of liquid, you can use walnut oil. Or they make walnut oil mediums that are fast drying. Normal walnut oil will actually slow down the drying. So I always leave the moon blank on the first layer. And then I kind of blend over it and it disappears a little bit. So you'll see that here in a sec. Now we get a little lighter again, and I add a little bit of yellow in as we come down here below this cloud. Blend out. Short little dancing downward strokes. See what I mean? I blend right over the moon so it kind of fades it out a little bit there. Now that I've got that mixed in, what I did on the original is I shifted the pool to purple so that I could paint the clouds up here. You don't want to paint this dark purple. You want the value to be the same. So the best way to make sure it's the same value is to just adjust the pool that you're working from. Test it out. Whoop. A little bit more red in it, just a hint. Okay, I'm going to speed the footage back up now, and we're going to start painting the orange part of the cloud. So I'm just going to key it in with a flat sort of orange to start with. And by the way, when I'm painting, I may be mixing a lot of color up on the palette, but I'm often side brushing it on. I'm not putting it on super thick if I plan on painting wet and layering into it. You definitely don't want to be a scrubby painter, so get in the habit of painting thicker, but just know how to manage the surface. You're better off painting thick and then using a knife or something to scrape off the excess paint just to build that habit, like I'm doing here. I'm kind of lightly pulling some of the paint off with the palette knife and blending it in with it. So right now the cloud looks too dark. That's by design. In oil paint, we work dark to light. So when I'm building the light in something, I'll underpaint it with a middle value, and then I'll paint the highlights into it wet in wet. So as you can see, I've got a whole big pool of color going here, but in it, there's lots of these little gradation shifts. If you look at the palette, you see the brighter yellow, and then of course I'm just shifting the pool constantly, and that's how I'm able to create that realistic effect. Using my finger to blend. Be careful if you're using oil paint, just to know your materials and know if you have any toxic paint in your palette. And you generally want to be as safe as possible when dealing with leads or cobalts. Cadmiums in general are considered pretty safe. They don't absorb through the skin according to the science that I've seen on it. So I'm not as worried about it. I make sure to wash my hands after each session. All right, so now I'm just using a small little soft brush and just kind of blending a little bit. I like to, on a painting like this that doesn't have a bunch of texture, I like to kind of keep the brush strokes out, and then at the end, if I decide I want to put some brush strokes in, they'll really stick out. But I don't like to keep a bunch of brush strokes everywhere through the whole process. So I'll generally blend. Those of you that have followed my channel for a while know that I have many different techniques I teach. Sometimes I teach a more impressionist approach, and sometimes I teach an approach that has a more classical technique to it. I think it's good as a landscape painter to learn all of the different techniques out there, and that is going to be how you're going to develop your own style. By blending all these different techniques, that's how you create your unique voice. By just copying another artist and painting in one style, you're going to not develop. So learning as much as you can is how you develop a style. All right, so I'm just continuing to blend here and add a little bit of blue, shifting the gradations, just modeling more and more and more. Now I'm cutting in with the sky blue again over the top of the clouds. And it's just, spending the time going back and forth. Now I'm going to block in the green grass here. So anyhow, this is a 2-part lesson on my Patreon. So there's 2 videos that go over 2 layers. This is just the first part. And so the lesson is in real time with commentary like you saw in the middle there. And if you're interested in that, you can just go to my Patreon, patreon.com/DevinMichaelRoberts. Anyhow, I want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch this, hitting the like button, and of course, subscribing. I really appreciate it. And of course, all of you who have migrated over to my Patreon and supported me there as well, I really appreciate it. I plan on releasing some abbreviated content like this a couple times a month. And anyhow, to end it here, I'll just end by saying that I'm really into these hay bale scenes. They're kind of kitsch a little bit, but I just love that feeling of light hitting a bale. And I live out in the country, so I see this scene, and I can't help but want to paint it when I see it. And this is an image of the final painting after the second layer and obviously continuing to refine it and work on it.